Welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the 24-day journey of the lovely Venus through the logical but friendly sign of Aquarius. It begins on January the 7th and it goes through to February the 10th when it arrives in the sign of Pisces. Now Venus in Aquarius is quite interesting. It's peregrine. That means it's not influenced by an essential dignity, either positively or negatively. Venus, of course, can be, through its rulership of Taurus, very much about our values, self-worth, our appreciation of the good things in life, more central because it's an earth sign, but very much to do with money, but also through its rulership of the other sign it governs, of Libra, which is an air sign like Aquarius, very much about relating, partnerships, harmony, peace. And also presentation, so more stylistic, more aesthetics. So what about Aquarius, which can be quite a revolutionary zodiac sign? Well, people with Venus in Aquarius, and I must confess I have Venus in Aquarius, and so does my wife, tend to have unusual relationships, but also a great emphasis on values through relationships and connections. But often friendships can be critically important, and that's certainly true of my history. We also need to consider, of course, whichever zodiac sign a planet's in, what house is actually amplifying the energy of that planet. So in my case it's in house 4, so a love of home, a love of closeness, and it's also conjunct the moon. So I do like my immediate environment to be very peaceful, a bit detached, which is very Aquarius, but for sure I do have very long-standing emotional friendships going right back to people I knew at junior school, some from the age of 5. And of course there are people that have come and gone in my life, because Venus in Aquarius can be quite principled. So if you do get to know someone with Venus in Aquarius, expect that from them, but they could also be a bit quirky in the way they dress. Some of their views about things in terms of those values may be more global. They may not necessarily follow the crowd in the way that some other zodiac signs hosting Venus would. So we do have Venus here for 24 days, and as ever it's really important to understand the reception committee. So I'm going to share with you the 2 event charts from a zodiacal but also a natal viewpoint. Then I'm going to share with you the upcoming aspects. There are 3 principal ones that I thought really looked exciting. The first 2 very positive. The second one, intriguingly, is a square with the modern ruler of the sign of Aquarius, which is Uranus. But as this relationship starts, Uranus actually forges a very warm welcome. I'm going to unpack all of this for you, then share with you your zodiac forecast for the next 24 days from Aries through to Pisces. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. If you're new here, thank you for joining us. If you're an existing viewer, or your comments, likes and views are very appreciated. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please help it to continue to thrive, and do so now. Now you can order your personal forecast for the next 12 months, totally unique to you, and get 50% off. I'm running this through to the end of January as a special. You'll get your life roadmap report as well, totally unique to each person it's produced for, and your free gift of your general love Chinese and Indian written zodiac forecast. Please see the link below for more. So on the screen now we have the natal chart, and there's Venus in the 9th house, and it's still pretty close to the sun. I mean, if this was a chart for an individual, you'd definitely say it's someone who could be progressive in their thinking, but also be very shrewd in terms of how they manage resources, because of that cluster of energies in Capricorn. But I just want to make you mindful of the position of Uranus. So it looks, because Uranus is in Taurus and Venus is in Aquarius, that they are not on good terms, but actually that is a lovely trine. So what we can find over the next 24 days is the opportunity to connect to people that are a little bit different can be strong, but it could happen through a financial or business opportunity because of Uranus's ability to innovate in the sign of Taurus, which of course is very much about money. And also Venus is in a sextile to Neptune, which is one of the most beautiful aspects possible. So if you go on a date this time, it could be life-changing, particularly with Venus about to apply to Pluto as the days tick by. So that's the impression from a natal viewpoint. Let's just look at that zodiacal impression. And here we have Venus in the 11th house, very much about our future planning. If you're in a relationship and it has those moments that most of them do where there's tensions, Venus in Aquarius reminds us to celebrate the things we have in common, not just focus on what makes us different. And so that's something we can benefit from. But generally, if we want to start becoming a bit more social and interactive after, particularly in the northern hemisphere, going through the winter season, hunkering down after Christmas, the cost of the festivities too, but we can start to feel the need to reconnect to people, and it can be through our interests. It could be through doing something more creative, because Venus, I feel, is very much to do with style and fashion and anything to do with making or creating. Brilliant to have Venus in Aquarius. Can join the local class for pottery or needlework or swimming, whatever it is, where you can have a little bit of connection to others but also do something that's enjoyable and is good for us as well. But if you are wanting to meet someone over the next 24 days, I think the more active you can be in terms of getting together with others, the better it is. And I think that being open to different viewpoints and unconventional people is something we can benefit from Venus's influence. But also it can be rebellious, and it can value the things we hold dear that go beyond the material quite strongly. So, for example, if we have been seeing someone and at a particular level, it all feels right. They may be gorgeous looking, they may have a good job, they may be stable, they may be really fond of us, but it doesn't really have that spark. It doesn't really have that connection at a more soul level in terms of what the deeper meaning is for us to be here. That could be something that we start to explore and maybe even think about breaking away if we don't feel it is for the long term. So I feel that the sign of Aquarius, particularly with Venus applying to Pluto almost straight away, which occurs from the 17th through to the 22nd of January, that's really saying in a very potent way, if you do have any planets right at the start of Aquarius, or perhaps an angle, because of Pluto being there and Venus coming onto Pluto, you're going to be thinking very deeply. Pluto, there could be revelations about money, about a relationship, if it's not quite meeting what we really want. But of course the converse can be true. Venus can join in with Pluto, could see us transform a situation in an incredibly positive and constructive way. And we may find that someone who up until now has just been a good friend can take on a much greater resonance and attraction because we realise there's something deeper about them. Now, I mentioned before that Venus can be very much about money and Mercury can be very much about business. Yes, it is the communicator, but it is the planet of precision through its rulership of Virgo. But Mercury is the marketeer, and they come together beautifully from the end of January through to the 4th of February, and that is exact on the 29th of January. So if you are talking about doing something and it's collective, it's with a group, or it is fresh, different, very progressive and foresighted, it really could take a step forwards using the charm of Venus, but also the cutting edge of Mercury, which is a planet which is going to arrive into Aquarius itself on the 20th, along with the Sun. We're going to have a Mercury cazimi on the 21st, so this is bringing a lot of glow up to Aquarius energy, and they're going to be fortified by Mars on the 23rd, and also a Pluto cazimi too. So if you're someone who's got a lot of air in your chart, or you're a particularly sociable person, or you're really into building up networks and aligning with people who share your values, a very, very powerful time is coming. Now, as I mentioned, Venus forges a very productive link with Uranus at the outset of this journey, but at the end of it, it clashes bitterly with Uranus. So if there is some kind of chasm about to develop between you and a friend, a business partner, maybe even a co-worker, where you see things differently, your values can become much more obviously clashing, if that's the case, towards the end of Venus's journey through this sign. So through the first week of February, just be aware that we could crave greater stimulation. We may want to do things more spontaneously. We could resist any kind of control, and that more rebellious and much more freedom-loving part of Venus's nature in the sign of Aquarius can really come much more strongly to the fore. I'm going to go through each of the 12 signs to give you a flavour of what you can expect over these 24 days. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I have got quite a hard cold. Just going back to my wife, her Venus is exactly conjunct my Sun in Aquarius, and her Venus is in the 7th house, which likes harmony, but also in Aquarius, not too much. It still needs to be recognised and appreciated and respected for being the individual. And so Venus in Aquarius is a really intriguing place for Venus to be. And so I'll go through each of those signs now, but please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. So Aries, for you, there has been such a lot of energy and continues to be in the sign of Capricorn, which of course is very industrious and very goal orientated, but everyone's goals are different. If, for example, you wanted to do something within your community and it was about getting people together, you could use your natural fire and thrust and leadership qualities and surf that Capricorn energy, but link to others very skillfully with the energy of Venus through the sign of Aquarius. So that's one of the things that comes up there. Equally, if you're in a bigger business, relationships matter. You know, we can have all these edicts, things have to be done in a certain way. Actually, it's when people cover for each other if someone's not feeling so great, or perhaps if there is a last minute emergency with a child needs picking up from school, that kind of flexing in and teamwork is something that really helps to hold businesses together. So your appreciation of being part of something whilst at the same time using, you know, your great energy and your courage to try different things, but your appreciation of that network and connections to others and the atmosphere, if you like, is really going to be amplified over the next few weeks. And for sure, with this absolute posse of Aquarius energy about to turn up in to the sign, I feel that you are going to see a switch from a lot of thinking about how you connect to the world. Now you're going to be thinking more about how you connect to other people, and notably through your social life, your interests. So if you have been very busy of late, very caught up with demands, I think over the weeks through to the end of January and into February, you're going to be really wanting to get together with people a lot more in lots of different ways. And there's a lot of excitement building in a very positive way for you. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. So Taurus, the collective of energy in Capricorn, which shares your Earth triplicity, is very much about change as good as a rest. But Venus moving into your 10th house is very much about professional relationships, to be honest, or it could be about taking more of a lead within a personal one. So, for example, if you're in a tie which is going pretty well, but you feel that your partner may be happy with the status quo, but you're wanting to achieve particular milestones. So it's really taking on a greater structure. The 10th house is about that structure. But of course, Venus is your ruler. And one of the things you know more than any other zodiac sign is that charm often wins the day. So your connections to influential people are really going to be heightened from now through to the end of this particular transit. But that connection between Venus and Pluto suggests a workplace relationship could be possible. There may be someone you're encountering through your business affairs that you're finding very difficult to ignore. But the other thing with Venus Pluto aspects is that we can be on the end of someone's flattery, but they actually want something from us, so they can use charm in order to leverage some kind of power. So if you're offered a job and the boss is absolutely pouring praise in your direction, just wait for the punchline of what they're actually going to offer you and how much time you're going to get off, and whether there's various other benefits attached to the position. So just be aware of that. But I think if you have been feeling a little bit boxed in your work and not really feeling it and not really enjoying it, I feel that the Aquarius energy that's starting to develop is really urging you to talk as much as possible, because Aquarius is about communication to lots of different people. Keep your mind very open about who might actually be a potential customer, a potential employer, or if you're thinking about going out on your own, it will be the people you know in your immediate circle who are going to be very important in spreading the message, propagating your talents on your behalf. So your connections, but particularly around work and worldly connections, definitely take on a greater resonance. But if you do want to take a relationship to that next level of commitment, the next few weeks is going to be intriguing too. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. So Gemini, you have sensed that something's transforming in your situation for good or bad, in a very positive way. If there are particular people or a person or a cause that you're really excited about, you may have put a lot of energy and investment, time and emotional energy into that situation. But equally, it could be about your finances, that all this Capricornian energy has been glowing up. But what about the Aquarius vibe? Because that's much more about freedom. So if there is something you're going through that has felt oppressive and you do want to break out and do your own thing, it may be around a friendship where you sense a person's too controlling, just wants to know what you're doing too much, and that part of you that likes to pivot and get on with lots of different types of people isn't great necessarily in having those kind of heavy expectations. But the converse could be true. If you're really loved up, it may have been deeply sensual recently, and one of the things you could plan with a partner now is to get away and have some kind of break. You know, whether it is for a weekend, one overnight, a date night if you've got kids, all of these things will help to spark the attraction between you. And you know, if you can find yourself talking about all sorts of things like past vacations you've had, or shared interests, the big picture, or going to a movies, seeing a band, anything which just brings about greater variety is definitely something that's going to call out to you. Now, if you are single, travel or connecting with someone from a completely different background could definitely be a way that you're drawn towards someone new and appealing over the next 24 days. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. So Cancer, with the collective that's been in your 7th house, if there is someone you're really getting on well with, Venus moving into the 8th house, but particularly connecting almost straight away to Pluto, can definitely bring a greater depth a greater desire for intimacy. So if you're lucky enough to be getting to know somebody new, it can get hot, hot, hot almost immediately. But of course, one of the intriguing things since the turn of the year, you've not just had Venus in one of its best locations, the 7th house, but you've also had Mars there. So on one hand, yes, you have been building up the goodwill. On the other hand, you've been reminding people about your boundaries. Good for you. And if there is something around a business situation or your long-term financial affairs that you want to transform, I feel that this particular Aquarius season that's coming, which begins with Venus's transition into Aquarius, is going to be very, very important. And if you're looking for a return, if you have particular resources, you're going to want to squeeze more from them. It may see you thinking about life insurances, different types of policies, anything to do with equities. These are things that can really benefit from your thoughtful gaze over these next 24 days. But equally, you may find yourself a little more compulsive. Despite the detached energy of Venus in Aquarius, it's because it's coming into contact with Pluto. So something or someone can prove to be almost irresistible over the next week or so. Can you resist Cancer, or can you keep your cool? It's going to be intriguing. But if you do meet someone new, there could be a mixture of friendliness but also chemistry, which is very, very special indeed. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. So Leo, I've got to be honest with you, Venus moving into Aquarius for you personally can be absolutely delicious, because it means it's echoing its Libran qualities. The 7th house, very much about balance, equilibrium, connecting to people but trying to find those mutual points of interest. Few relationships are perfect, are they? But what we can do is try to celebrate those things where we can work together. But because of the conjunction to Pluto that occurs almost straight away, you may also be asked to make a big decision about a relationship. And the cluster of energy we've had recently, even since the turn of the year in the 6th house, has perhaps got you thinking about the practicalities of your life, but also about where you're very self-sacrificing and you're considering the needs of others, which you may be happy to do. But like any situation like that, if it becomes too much give and very rarely any get, that can actually cause some issues. So even if you need to be diplomatic with the kids about clearing up their rooms or doing the washing up, I feel Venus applying to Pluto will help you to make your point in, with a degree of charm and decorum, but also with degree, with Pluto in the mix, of menace, so they will know that you really do mean what you say. But that's no bad thing. But just know, for the next year and a half, year and 3/4, relationships are going to be a huge part of your celestial story. And in some ways, Pluto had flagged up in advance, but has been for some time. So I think a relationship matter has probably been on your mind for the last 2 or 3 years. But it is going to come sharply into focus as January comes to the close, for good or bad. If you did meet someone for the first time, I think it could be extremely constructive. If you are trying to work with a relationship that maybe has its qualities but not perfect, then that may be where you want to use the more diplomatic energy of Venus in Aquarius to just lean into the issues, but it's going to be your use of language or tactics that's going to be very important. But that's perhaps where Venus's more Taurus energy comes in. A little bit of charm, but also stealth won't go amiss if you are trying to get someone to be more conscious of what you do without it becoming attritional. But if you are just wanting to collaborate with someone, be more playful, spend more time with a particular friend on a joint hobby or interest, a really sparkling set of influences is heading your way. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. So Virgo, we know that Venus can be about love and affection and peace, but the host, the 6th house, where you've had Pluto gaining a foothold in recent years, is much more to do with everyday routines, practicalities, the details, can be to do with well-being, exercise, the amount of sleep we get, what we're exactly eating and drinking, the details, things that you have a natural appreciation and gift for. But Venus, being the relator in terms of a relationship situation, suggests that in the domestic sphere or even at work, if you're the person who tends to do a lot more of the heavy lifting and other people are quite happy to let you, it's time for a reset. But equally, the 6th house can be about our work. If you have been doing something that's given you a lot of satisfaction over a long period of time, just ask yourself the honest question: do you still love doing it, or are you balancing a lot of different factors to almost justify not making a change? Because Pluto is about change, and it's not just Venus that's hitting it. We're going to see the Sun and Mercury, and we're also going to see Mars all hitting on Pluto. Pluto's about transformation. It can deconstruct, but it also can reconstruct as well. And I think Pluto's been asking that big question that's been just at the back of your mind for some while. Is your life, the routine of your world, your job, or your everyday choices around some of your personal lifestyle approaches, are they quite as virtuous as they could be? Or are you appreciated as much as you could be in terms of how hardworking and sacrificing you are? So a lot of questions are going to be asked of you, to be honest, Virgo, over the next few weeks. And if you're up for it, it's a chance to really shift, but in a very dynamic way. And the intriguing thing is that Uranus continues in your 9th house through to the 26th of April, and saying to you, look, if you're able to go outside what you intimately know, there may be opportunities that could surprise you and actually recreate that everyday world in a much more productive but also much more personally satisfying way for you. Now, in terms of a close relationship, what you're definitely looking for is consideration. However much someone's romantic, if they're not prepared to do their turn with the cooking, putting the rubbish out, taking the kids to school and so forth, those very considerate gestures are very important to create harmony, and that's what you're going to be looking for from an existing partner over the next few weeks. If you are single, you could meet someone in the most everyday of locations over the next weeks too. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. So Libra, I'm really genuinely excited for you. Not because I have an ascendant in Libra. My ascendant's quite late at 23 degrees, so the overlay goes into Scorpio. But I feel that Libran people haven't had it easy. In recent years, Saturn, 6th house, quite bruising, quite demanding. But that Plutonian energy through Capricorn, we've spoken about it a lot before, but from the turn of this year, there has been a lot of that 4th house energy. So yes, you may have been busy around your home, making some improvements, some changes, even moving. But what you get the chance to do now is really start to connect to life in a much more socially interactive way. Playful, if I dare say. Romantic even. The 5th house has it all. And because you have an absolute welter of planetary energy arriving in the sign of Aquarius from today, from this Venus transition, but the role of Pluto cannot be underestimated. So something's going to transform for you. If you're not, for example, if you haven't got any personal hobbies because of the demands of other parts of your life, you're being urged to really create the space for you, to do things that are fun, pleasurable, creative, to help you to showcase your talent, whether it's amateur dramatics, whether it's painting, music, whether it's getting together with your friends, but a much more freer and lighter and much more elevated part of the year and your life is beginning from this time. And it's going to go on for quite a while, because the solar eclipse coming on the 17th of February, but also because of the North Node arriving in Aquarius at the end of July, And we also have the solar eclipse on the 12th of August in Leo. So big opportunities over the next couple of years for you to have a much more uplifting, interactive, and dare I say, even flirty experiences. And you really, truly deserve it. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. Scorpio, Pluto, your modern ruler, has been in your 4th house in 3 phases and full time since the end of, or the middle of November 2024. So there has been a sense that something's changing at the root of your life. You may have done renovations around a property, you may have moved. There may have been big changes started to shape up in your closest family or your extended family. With Venus arriving to join up with your modern ruler, all of that can be accentuated. If you are wanting to decorate, for example, if you're in the southern hemisphere, spend more time in your garden. Venus's love of beauty is really going to be very much about your immediate environment, so that's lovely. As far as relationships are concerned, you want to understand that it's not just the dialogue, the flirting, the fun, which has been quite to the fore recently. It's what's beneath that, the soul level. And Venus connecting to Pluto exactly on the 20th of January, along with the Sun and Mercury arriving into the sign of Aquarius, really is a massive shift. Being grounded, being connected to what gives you a sense of peace and tranquility. But because Pluto is about transformation, sometimes we have to let go of something to create the space in order to let something in. And you may be thinking, but there isn't anything physical I want to let go of. So maybe in that context, it's more like an energetic exchange. Is there particular ways of thinking about your emotions or your immediate environment or your family life or responses you have that maybe are a little stuck? The opportunity with all the Aquarius energy coming is to have a fresh look, and it may be through a friend makes some very shrewd observations on your situation which can help you to understand yourself at a much more profound level. But if you are in a relationship, it does have to have that emotional dimension to it. If you're not feeling very happy, there's something that's out of kilter, something may have to change. And I do feel that when we have that Aquarius solar eclipse on the 17th of February, that's going to be a critical time because it is squaring off with Uranus in your opposite side. So that can see a final shakeout if you've not been sure about what to do about a close relationship that isn't making you very happy. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. Sagittarius, Venus moving into your 3rd house is going to start a process where life gets very much quicker. Emails are going to be pinging backwards and forwards, text messages as well. If you are single, things are going to get seriously flirty over the next few weeks. But what you're really looking for, I feel, because of Pluto's role, anchoring any conversations or discussions that go on is a meaning, something that really resonates for you. And Saturn over the last couple of years has really been asking you to work on understanding what's really important to you. So as much as you can get on with lots of different types of people and your enthusiasm can be infectious, and that's very possible, you could have much more meeting up, going for a coffee with a friend, sharing brilliant, dazzling ideas you've got. It's all coming. It's going to be really exciting. But your ruler Jupiter, in terms of very close emotional or romantic connection, is in a retrograde still in the 8th house, which is very much deeper. It's very much all in or all out. So there is an opportunity to have some very lively exchanges, and I think it could be a lot of fun, but I think that's what you're looking for. What is underneath the message? And if you've got something to share that's important to you, that's going to be a vital part of the process. It's not just about convincing people, persuading them, or being very, very charming. It's about what's important to you, the value of that message. And that's really been very much to the fore recently with all that 2nd house energy, but over the years since 2008, that's what Pluto was asking you to really become much more conscious of. The last couple of years, Saturn's asked you to become much more conscious of how you feel emotionally, your immediate environment. But if you wanted to be more playful, frivolous, and just have a much more fun time, the next 24 days will give you a great chance to do that, and that there could be some very engaging encounters. But if you're in an existing relationship, I feel that Venus here is just perhaps suggesting that if you have become a little bit caught up on the inner part of your world, no bad thing to get out, socialise and have some air and ventilation, because Aquarius is about those connections and the network, and your network can absolutely thrive over the next few weeks, and dare I say over the next 2 years, with solar eclipse coming in Aquarius, the North Node from the end of July, and also the energy from the solar eclipse in Leo of the 12th of August. A very rockingly upbeat period is heading your way. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. So Capricorn, one of the lovely things that happens when Venus moves out of our own zodiac sign, which can be very much about manifestation, turning our individual ideas, the alchemy if you like, from that spark through to something being realised that's more tangible, and that's where you're heading with Venus in the second house. So just in terms of the nuts and bolts, your finances can improve considerably over the next 24 days. But equally, you may find yourself wanting to splash out a little bit more, but why not if so? But if you're negotiating anything around money, just be aware with Pluto in the mix. Pluto is very, very good in a conjunction with Venus, of being very charming, but the power that is about Pluto, which is often hidden, is something we need to stay conscious of. So something could be leveraged, but it doesn't mean to say it's going to be bad. But I think you're looking for a firmer foundation. All the things you've been working on recently, you now want to see in terms of your own self-worth and satisfaction, but also materially, you want to see your money, your income improve, and it can do. If it doesn't happen straight away over the next week or two, if you put the work in, it can definitely happen over the next 1.5 to 2 years. And in terms of a romantic alliance, if you are in an existing relationship, I think Venus moving into your second house really asks you to enjoy the good things in life with a partner. So going out for a meal, get that more sensual vibe going. Calorific goodies may become much harder to resist, I should mention. But I think that if your values don't quite align to someone you've been seeing recently, that also can become a lot more obvious. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. So Aquarius, since the turn of the year, it's almost like you've been working behind the scenes in a preparation phase. Once the sun returns to Aquarius each year, you always pick up energy and vibrancy and thrust. But this year is going to be a year like no other, not least the advanced party in the guise of Venus. Now Venus, of course, can be about relating, peace and love, but it can also, in terms of the first house, be about our personal appearance. And Venus, through its rulership of Libra, I think, is very much about presentation and style. So if you find yourself wanting to change things up with your wardrobe, your hair, in whichever way, you can do so, changing your profile on your social media, and you are going to feel much more in the moment. And if you have gone through some kind of deep thinking around a relationship or around relationships in general, or even been thinking deeply about someone from your past, now you can draw a line in the celestial sand, move into the moment, and can dazzle people. So you know you're gorgeous, you're just going to be even more sure of that from now. And of course, when Venus applies to Pluto, the big changes that Pluto has been provoking in recent years brings some different and more delicate energies to bear. But then we have the Sun and Mercury on Tuesday the 20th, and we have the Venus-Pluto conjunction, and then the Sun and Mercury move into your sign, and then we have the Mercury cazimi on Wednesday, followed by Mars moving into Aquarius on Friday, and then the Pluto cazimi. Oh my word, things are really going to be revolutionized. If it has felt that something's been stuck, or your own energy or self-confidence have been slightly below par, or you haven't felt that other people have been in touch with you recently, or if you have just been digging deep, doing a lot of resting, healing, perhaps embracing some new ways of healing, none of that would be a surprise. But you're entering the celestial launch pad, and it's all about having the confidence to be different. And because Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius, receives Venus in a very constructive way, have that confidence to demonstrate your complete unique way of doing things, because that is what's very special. And as much as people are encouraged these days to be individualistic, when I was a kid you all had to be the same. If you weren't the same, it was a problem. But yeah, people are encouraged to be individualistic, but there's plenty of us that perhaps are a little bit more reserved, don't find it quite so easy to be different. But now you're going to give yourself permission to really thrust forwards with all your exciting plans, and other people are really going to be sitting up and taking notice. And sometimes when we care the least about what other people think, particularly romantically, I feel, that may be when you can draw someone to you. And don't be surprised if from now through to the 10th of February, someone completely different is in touch with you, or even more than one person shows an interest in you. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video. So Pisces, the more spiritual dimension of relationships is going to call out to you over the next few weeks. You may find yourself wanting to just hunker down a little bit. The collective in the sign of Capricorn has been, on the face of it, very friendly, and you may have had some chances to meet up. But I think within that, you were, because of Pluto being in your 12th house, and because Saturn has asked some tough questions of your energy and vitality over the last couple of years, I don't think you've possibly been flat out socially, but maybe a bit more selective who you would meet with. But that desire to have real quality and depth to your connections is going to be amplified in a major way. If you're not happy in a relationship, the collective in Capricorn, which is very much about the future, may have seen you start to think about your potential options, and if one of them that you're considering is an exit point, I think that could come towards the end of Venus's journey in the sign of Aquarius, just before she arrives in your zodiac sign and goes into a square with Uranus. Because something could come out then, even if you're still just working through what you want to do, if that's the scenario. But if you are attracted to someone over the next few weeks, it could be that that connection initially is quite low key. And because Neptune, your modern ruler, receives the energy of Venus so beautifully, a connection that does have a more spiritual dimension, even if it isn't like a very rock and roll attraction from the off, could actually stand the test of time. So a lot more nuance and subtlety around all sorts of connections is definitely important. In terms of the financial side of Venus moving into the 12th house, I think it is about deep research, getting down into the numbers, trying to understand what your options are. It's not necessarily a time to be too risk-taking, too speculative. It's more about that research and reflection. And one final thing, whoever it is, romantically, friendship-wise, or around colleagues, sincerity is going to be a burning theme for you over these next few weeks. And don't bend on what you will accept. That is a minimum requirement for you. Please check out your very special 50% off forecast offer underneath this video.